always a challenge making the applause last, from the seat to the podium. Well, good morning, everyone. Oh, it's not audience. Not game. It's not a game show. Thank you so much for that introduction, Samira, and for the invitation to speak to you today. Since I started in television, in commercial television, in 1973, I remember when it was all fields around here, you know. Dennis Norden once said to me, he said, "You know you're getting old." He said, "All your sentences end with the words," and that was a lot of money in those days. That's the laughter of recognition, I can tell. Anyway, my goodness, how the sector has been transformed structurally and technically and in every possible way. When I joined London Weekend Television, we of course were enjoying a monopoly of television advertising. And the ad sales director never came in on a Wednesday because it buggered up both weekends. Think about that. And we all work from home now, so it doesn't matter, does it? This gathering is not necessarily somewhere you'd expect to hear from Ofcom, because although we oversee TV, radio, wireless airwaves, telecoms, and the postal service, we are not the UK's advertising regulator, which often comes as a surprise. And when we ask people what they think Ofcom actually does, I'm afraid regulating adverts is the second most popular answer. And much as I'd like to take credit for setting standards and maintaining trust in your industry, that is largely the admirable work of the Advertising Standards Association, and you'll be hearing from them shortly. That's not to say that Ofcom doesn't have a role in the market, a regulatory role. We are, after all, the backstop regulator for TV and radio ads, and if a broadcaster should ever ignore an ASA ruling, they could be referred to us, possibly to take legal action. And it's Ofcom's broadcasting code that bans the types of TV and radio advertising that none of us wants to see, surreptitious or political. We also set clear rules around some of the important opportunities for your brand's sponsorship and product placement, for example. Now that means viewers have complete transparency, which inspires confidence and trust in advertising. Then we have the rules around ad breaks on the licensed broadcasters. This is known as COSTA, nothing to do with coffee, but rather the Code on the Scheduling of Television Advertising, which regulates how much ad time is allowed on British television. But none of that is why I'm here today. And for that, I must turn to Ofcom's new job. You've no doubt heard about the Online Safety Act recently passed. After years and years of rigorous debate in Parliament, it became law in October, got royal assent. This groundbreaking piece of legislation gives Ofcom an expanded role to help achieve a safer life and a safer environment online. The new laws apply to sites and apps like social media, search engines, and messaging platforms. These companies now have duties to assess and respond to risks of harm. They also need to protect children's online safety. And Ofcom's job, statutory job, is to hold them to account. Now, the internet is, I'm sure we could all agree, on balance, a 21st century boon to most people and most businesses on the planet. But there is a corner of the web that is toxic and long in need of some regulation. You may have seen the US Senate only last week questioning the likes of Meta and TikTok about harmful content, and pretty aggressive questioning it was too. You can take your own view on the way they responded. I should say that in the online world, Ofcom will not be regulating content itself, like we do on TV and radio. Parliament correctly wants us to get to the cause by shining a light on the decisions companies take when they're designing and operating their services and products. So social media and search platforms themselves must take the steps to protect their users. Children are always the top priority, and we'll ensure that tech firms are addressing child sexual abuse, suicide, self-harm material. For adult users, we'll focus on fraud and extremism, including terrorist content. Ofcom has begun consulting on detailed codes that will cover all this. We have trained and hired expert teams with experience across the online sector, from tech companies to public service bodies to charities and so on, people who have real understanding of the issues. So our regulation will be workable and adaptable to change. Of course, online harm is actually a global problem, as I'm sure we all agree. The internet knows no boundaries. Most services in scope of the Act are actually based overseas, so you may be thinking, how's any of this going to work? Why should overseas tech giants comply with a regulator in the UK? I believe they will, and I'll give you 3 reasons why, and let's call them the 3 A's. First, there is the clear advantage to doing the right thing. Some tech firms will feel a sense of altruistic duty or the need to protect their brand, their reputation. In any case, excuse me, in any case, evidence shows that trusted platforms see more loyal, engaged users and even higher staff retention, not unimportant. And if online services don't prioritize important safety areas like moderation, their users and their content creators can vote with their mouse. Just have to look at Substack, the subscription platform, which has recently seen high-profile defections after it declined initially to take down newsletters with Nazi content. Second incentive on platforms, the second A, is accountability. Companies who fall short face fines, either from Ofcom or from regulators in other countries passing similar laws to our own Online Safety Act. We also have the power, via the UK courts, to disrupt businesses who fail to comply, either through their funding or their availability, ultimately, to users. Now, will all that be enough? We hope so. We believe it will. But there is a third reason why companies must comply and should comply. And for most platforms, and for this audience in particular, it might be the most important A of all: advertising. We all know the wonderful benefits that online advertising provides: global reach, cost efficiency, wealth creation, the chance to address the individual and measure the results precisely. It's a thriving sector globally, with 9% growth forecast this year, heading towards a £500 billion market. Equally, we know aspects of the market need improving. Too often, transparency or accountability are lacking in the supply chain. Illegal adverts, fraud, and hateful content threaten to damage the reputation of the sector and everyone associated with it. So while we all want growth, it must be responsible growth, the timely theme for this event. What might this mean in practice? Well, as you know, the government is working on a package of reforms to give regulators better tools around advertising online. They're prioritizing growth, trust, and safety from illegal advertising, particularly children. This is a really important program, which Ofcom is fully supporting. So too are many of you through the Online Advertising Task Force. And Ofcom now has a specific remit to tackle fraudulent ads under the Online Safety Act. We've also worked with the Competition and Markets Authority to consider what changes in the market might support online safety. For example, if switching between platforms were easier, would users who are affected by harmful content go elsewhere? But you in this room and all your colleagues and associates in the sector have a very vital role to play. At this point, let me take you back to 1980s Hollywood. I was running a TV production company in LA, having come from the heavily regulated world of ITV. Frankly, I was astonished at the lack of formal content oversight. But I realized very quickly that American television was indeed regulated, not by a watchdog, but by the advertisers. Every network had a department called Standards and Practices, who made sure that programs didn't cause affront to the paymasters. One of the early examples of this was a quiz show in the 50s, I think it was on NBC or CBS, which was hosted by my comic hero Groucho Marx. It's a simple Q&A quiz game, and he used to interview the contestants, and he's interviewing a middle-aged couple, and he says to the woman, he says, "Where are you from?" She says, "Salina, Kansas, Groucho." He says, "Excuse me, are you married?" She said, "Yes, my husband." He said, "Do you have any children?" She said, "Yeah, we got 12 children, Groucho." Round of applause. Groucho said, "I like a cigar, but I take it out of my mouth occasionally." That was the end of his career as a game show host. The advertisers pulled the plug. Now, this is often the case today, and back in the UK, Ofcom's regulation is more light touch and always post-transmission, very important point, than its predecessors. But our rule book still offers an important safeguard for viewers and listeners and, of course, advertisers. In the long term, I believe our online regulation can have similar results, but it will take time to have maximum effect. Most major online services rely absolutely on marketing revenue today, and advertisers need not, indeed must not, wait to act. Things are moving apace. Tech firms are making decisions now about their investment in trust and safety. Those who fail to invest may fail ultimately to comply. And many companies are taking really positive steps to get in line with online safety laws. Just last month, Meta announced stricter controls for teenage users of Instagram and Facebook, less than 2 months after Ofcom proposed similar measures for online platforms. Changes like that benefit everyone. People in the UK all say they want a safer internet. Who doesn't? Especially for our children and, in my case, grandchildren. And of course, no advertiser wants their creative work, their voice to the consumer, their brand to appear alongside toxic, dangerous, or illegal or hateful content. I know, and you all know, how much is invested in the brands, and brands are nothing without trust. So if you're a marketer with money to spend online, or if you're an agency planning and buying on behalf of clients, my message to you is this: online safety is happening now. You have a chance to play your part by getting ahead of the harm, getting ahead. For brands and agencies, this is about making trust and safety a priority. Most of all, it's about making sure the platforms you are spending money on are aware of their new duties under the Online Safety Act. Are you sure, can you be sure, that your online ad spend isn't damaging your valuable brands by being algorithmed alongside harmful, horrible content? How good is your campaign monitoring at keeping you away from pretty horrible content? Many of you are asking these questions already and demanding answers. And if you're not, now is the time. To illustrate why, let's just consider for a moment YouTube, which has faced more than one boycott in recent years. In 2017, after the Sunday Times highlighted extremist, hateful, racist, and homophobic content on the service, a stream of major brands found themselves engulfed in public outcry. Numerous firms, from Pepsi to Starbucks, left the platform. Within weeks, its owner, Google, hired 10,000 extra content moderators. This process now seems to be happening in reverse at X. According to Australia's e-Safety Commission, X has slashed its global trust and safety team by 30%, including 80% fewer safety engineers. Now, X faces an advertiser exodus over harmful content. Apple and Disney among those to pause spending. So it's clear advertisers have unique leverage in the fight against harmful content. But nobody wants to be reacting to a crisis, by which time damage has been done. Here is the chance to get ahead of the harm and inoculate your brands against the infective potential of online harm by association. With that in mind, I was delighted to see Mark Lund from ASBOF, who deputy chairs the government's online advertising task force, speaking recently about the need to anticipate new legislation and strengthen the trust between brands and consumers. It says much about the ad industry that its trade bodies, Advertising Association, IPA and ISBA, are all represented on this task force. They've been collaborating with each other and with government to produce the action plan that we all hope will achieve the improvements we need across the sector. In a moment, I believe the ASA will explain their own shift towards anticipatory AI-based regulation. Meanwhile, the Internet Advertising Bureau, also here today, has an established gold standard for its members. It requires steps to tackle online fraud, uphold brand safety, and improve people's online experience. And ISBA, our co-hosts, are also contributing to the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, a worldwide initiative to establish safety standards and incentivize better moderation of online content. So, to conclude, together, through measures like this, our advertising industry can remain a jewel in the crown of the UK's creative industries. It can grow responsibly and absolutely be a force for good in the wider world. For many years, this sector has led the world for creative quality and regulatory standards. And now you have the chance to renew that leadership and reaffirm those values. By protecting the reputation of your clients and your brands, you can get ahead of harm and preserve your industry's proud heritage. More than that, you will be helping to achieve a safer life online for all of us and our kids and our grandchildren. Online safety regulation is here, so please make sure the platforms who carry your adverts know about it and are taking it seriously. Because making the internet a safer place is a huge task. It won't be quick and it won't be easy to achieve, and we cannot do it alone. But with your help, I'm sure we can make it happen. And I know you will all want to be part of that for the benefit of your brands, your industry, and our wider society. Thank you so much for listening.